according to President Trump, those tariffs on Canada and Mexico are on track. He thinks they're on time, so we could be hit with these levies within the next few days. Our guest says most Canadians are concerned about this country's economy as a result of tariffs. We're joined by Nik Nanos, founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Great to see you, Nik. Thanks very much. So you're finding some economic gloom out there.
Yeah, was I supposed to cheer you up, Andrew?
That's all right. I'm so volatile. I'll be buoyant and chipper in a minute about something. Thanks.
Okay. Well, you know, the thing is that we track for Bloomberg consumer confidence basically every week. One of the questions that we ask, straight up question, do you think that the Canadian economy will get stronger, weaker, or stay the same in the next 6 months? A whopping 65% of Canadians believe that the economy will get weaker. Only 9% think that the Canadian economy will get stronger in the next 6 months. To put this into context, Andrew, the last time views were this negative was back in the pandemic in 2020.
Wow. So we really, we've seen signs of national unity, but we're also seeing pessimism over the impact of this trade war if it comes to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. So just I think maybe the best way to think of this is the same type of economic anxiety that people had at the beginning of the pandemic, while Donald Trump and tariffs has an equivalent level of anxiety. And it speaks to the position that Canadians feel themselves in, the uncertainty related to tariffs, if and when and what will happen on that front. And that the view right now is that with this uncertainty, that the economy will get weaker in the next 6 months.
And you found that people in Ontario and BC were especially pessimistic?
Yeah, they're more pessimistic. They're above average. You know, the other thing is that when we ask Canadians about their personal finances, people are almost 3 times more likely, 2.5 times more likely to think that their personal finances are worse off rather than better off compared to a year ago. And, you know, when you look at the trend line on consumer confidence and our expectations index, which is the forward-looking index, what you can see is a direct connection between Donald Trump being elected president of the United States and people starting to be concerned about the future strength of the Canadian economy and how strong the economy is. It's basically a direct connection, and you can see a negative trajectory on that front over the last number of weeks and months since Donald Trump won the election.
It's interesting that Canadians under 30 were a little more optimistic than people over 50.
Yeah, well, I guess another way to look at it is that, you know, Canadians under 30 have already taken a hit and have been kind of dealing with things. So there's a little more of a steady state on that front. You know, the other thing is that, you know, when you look at the numbers when it comes to age, the one thing that's quite striking is that, you know, if you happen to be older, you're probably less likely to be sensitive to a lot of these shocks, you know, related to the economy. But, you know, when you look at the age variation, you know, there's only really about a 2-point delta when it comes to consumer confidence.
Yeah, and so this is have we plunged? I mean, say even a few months ago, were Canadians feeling reasonably optimistic about the economy? I'm just trying to track how abrupt the decline has been, Nik.
Yeah, actually, for a big part of 2024, Canadians were net positive about the economy, and consumer confidence was also net positive with a score above 50 on the 100-point scale. And I think a lot of that had to do with a stabilization of interest rates, people thinking that things were going to be okay and starting to kind of plan. But, you know, what we've seen basically is literally the week after Donald Trump was elected president, that all that started, that positivity that we realized for most of 2024 basically began to unravel and turn into a downward spiral, at least over the last number of weeks.
We're a few days away from the Ontario election. And now I'm asking you to speculate here, and apologies to viewers in the other parts of the country who may not be that interested. But Doug Ford, of course, has struck a defiant stance against the tariffs. But what I wanted to ask you, in troubled times like these, does an incumbent, a known quality, have an advantage in an election?
Well, not necessarily have an advantage, but in this particular case, Doug Ford, Premier Ford, announced that he wanted the election to deal with Trump and tariffs, asked that he wanted a stronger mandate, and that's actually been the main lens. And he's been proactive on that front. He's been proactive with all the other premiers and also proactive working in concert with the federal government. So, you know, he's gotten a bit of an easy ride, so to speak, during this election. He hasn't had to defend his record because that's all he's been talking about is asking for a mandate to deal with Donald Trump and tariffs. So in this particular case, it's been good news for him because as an incumbent, he hasn't had to focus on what's happened since 2022 and a record to defend.
That's interesting. Any indication on what it would take to shake this mood of gloom among Canadian consumers? Because it's got to be bad. I mean, people will be presumably postponing big ticket purchases.
Yeah, I think that's all it would take is some sort of stability or certainty. You know, let's face it, consumers are a lot like CEOs. What do they want? Stability and certainty so that they can plan. And, you know, I think that even if we know what's going to happen, I would expect that over time, consumer confidence will start to rebuild because Canadians can start to organize around whatever that new world is in terms of what type of tariffs and what scope of tariffs exist.
Nik, always great hearing from you.